Let's face it, this book is great. You know what's not in here? All the little stuff about how to use these big ass guns to take people down and win games. We're going to go through a couple of things that I've seen on some of the competitive forums, Reddit, Facebook, everything else, questions that have come up, and little hedge case things to help you make decisions in game to kill more, win more, and have more fun with your tower. Let's get started. Right, hello Chassos. This one was prompted by a thread that I saw come up where somebody was asking about an order of sequencing with when they're shooting. So I thought I'd go through a couple of the most common things with a shooting army that will sort of be the difference between somebody who succeeds and somebody who fails. And I'm going to have a couple of hedge cases in here. I'm not, unfortunately, going to be able to cover everything. But if there's anything you feel like I have missed or whatever else, make sure you hit it down in the comments, let people know. Let's have a look at what we can do in order to have you shoot more effectively and take control of the board by immense weight of fire, perfectly placed. All right, so the first one that we're going to be doing is in direct response to the Facebook group that I'm part of. A question came up in there about a sort of hedge case series of rulings that they weren't really sure on, and just wanted to go through exactly how this resolves and how you can sort of make sure that you and your opponent know exactly the way that things are supposed to go with this. The question was, he was splitting his fire, he blew up a vehicle, and some of the models died because of it, and the model that was originally shooting could no longer see the unit that he had split fire onto, and his opponent argued that he could not see them, so he could not shoot them. This is 100% wrong. 100% wrong. When you are deciding your shooting from a model or a unit, no matter where you send your shots, everything resolves at the exact same time. This also influences things like the Tausept stratagem, where you can't shoot with one set of guns, the model loses a wound, and then every other gun that model's equipped with then gets +1 to wound. It doesn't work like that. Everything happens all at once, and then after you resolve those attacks is when all of the after things happen. So what I've done is just set up a small example here with our Riptide. As you can see, he is able to see a Sagittor, and he is able to see one or two models from the unit that's in that building. Now, for this example, we're going to blow up that Sagittor. He shoots him, but he was allocating his plasmas and, let's say, a couple of other shots into the unit to the side. Now, Sagittor blows up, the boys jump out and land themselves. Now, obviously, these guys are not targetable because they were not available and eligible targets when we declared our fire. Don't forget, when you're declaring a unit to fire, you must allocate all of their guns before you start rolling dice. So, Sagittor goes boom. And because it goes boom, these guys take a number of mortal wounds. Let's say they take 3 mortal wounds. And your opponent goes, okay, cool. Well, if I take this one, I take this one, and I take this one, because of the way obscuring terrain works, your gun can only see through here. Therefore, all you can see is a unit that was not an eligible target when you declared your guns. No. We still shoot you. Because that unit was an eligible target, when we allocated all of our shooting, it all happens at once. No matter whether that unit can see them or not anymore. And that's why you cannot pull models in a way as an opponent that stops that unit which is firing from doing any further damage to that unit. So, then let's go on to a case where you can hamper your army by firing in the wrong order. Over here, we have a unit of crisis holding an objective. They have a small amount of line of sight to these guys over here, the half guard. Then we've got a Riptide over this side, who is able to see a unit of bikes and a group of warriors over the side there. Now we've decided that we want to remove that half guard before we do anything else. They are a 10-man brick, they are a massive threat, and we have high damage, high AP weaponry in order to deal with them. The warriors and the bikes we'll deal with later. Which of these units should fire first? Because as you can see from the line of sight, both have an angle on them. This unit has an angle on those there. There are 2 parts to the answer that are correct.
What
do you think they are? So, the answer here is that the crisis suits should fire first. Now, here is why. If we look at their line of sight, they have a hair that they can see that unit with. If we were to fire the Riptide first, and this is the second part of it, that Riptide has multiple targets, the crisis unit has but one. So, if anything happens to that unit that pulls them out of line of sight, we have a full unit of crisis that cannot shoot for their entire turn, which is a massive waste of damage. So, let's say Riptide goes firing. Our opponent goes, okay, cool, well, I lose 2 models. I'm going to pull those 2. Your crisis suits can't see, and now there's no fire onto the bikes or the warriors either. He wins in 2 regards for the sake of 2 models. If we were to do that in reverse, however, crisis puts some fire down, double plasma missile pod puts in some work. Let's say they fail a bunch of their stuff, and we actually get 4 models with the crisis suits. They've got Commander Shadow Sun buffs. They've got all the rerolls and extra AP and everything else. They rip through some of that unit. Riptide then goes, okay, I can see them, but they've lost a fair amount of dudes. They're not nearly the threat that they were before. Kind of worry about those bikes getting onto us. All right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my ion accelerator cannon just here, and I'm going to put the plasmas over here. We split our fire. The ion accelerator picks up the bikes and kills 1 more model, because that goes through on AP full weapon. That, as opposed to the 2 that we kill over there before, is a much better turn. Make sure that when you're looking at your order of activations, a single unit, when it declares its shots, cannot stop itself from being able to shoot at those targets almost for any reason, at least none that spring to mind. But when you have multiple units on the board that are looking at shooting targets, how you activate in order is very, very important. Now, this is also made a little bit harder by the fire and fade stratagem, which is one of the most common ones that we will use for crisis suits. There'll be a second part of this video where I was showing one of my mates when I was teaching him all my tricks, where I show some of the things that we can do with fire and fade. But fire and fade specifies at the start of the shooting phase, it must be the first unit to fire, whoever is firing and fading. So, if you've got a unit popping out and we were to reverse roles there, if we were to move like that, that was a mistake on our behalf, because if this fella's sitting here and this unit's over here, if he's only got a tight line down there, we needed to put our Riptide in a different place because this unit will activate first. Or we just accept that these guys are going to pick up a lot of stuff over here. Cool, that's fine. Riptide's going to do what he can into the half guard. That is a part of that decision making. That is a part of the choice that you make, but it is made a little bit more complex by the fire and fade stratagem. And I hope that helps. All right, so I figured this would be a good thing for me to record. We were kind of already chatting before. I'm going to be going over a lot of stuff. Chris is here for a learning game. You remember him from one of my previous videos. He's the guy that lent me the Votan, that have let me play this army, which is incredible. Later on, so later on, if it looks like I've got a little bit of like wetness on the side of my mouth and a black eye, you know that I've been paying that back. So basically, Chris asked a really great question because he's come down because he's going to be learning Tau and I'm going to be learning Votan, and we've both sort of played the other armies, so it's kind of a really great opportunity, which again is another great reason to go out and get involved in competitive scenes, because we met each other just at a random tournament and...
it was the Combat Company, GT.
Yeah, Combat Company, GT, kept seeing each other at other events, you know, yelling like sexual harassment across the room or whatever, and you just kind of...
if he enjoys it.
But that's, yeah. All right, so the question was asked, what stratagems am I thinking of? Because he didn't have the book or the data cards with him. And so as a brief rundown, I realized that this is actually really great information. So I'm going to run through the one that I said before, the crisis suits. The biggest stratagems that I will use with them, specific to the crisis suits, there are 3. Dynamic offensive, which is auto advance 16 and ignore the modifiers for advancing and firing. Your fire and fade, which for anybody that's using that is start of shooting phase, so they must be the first unit to fire and they can only go 6 inches. So if you want them to go back over a wall, you cannot extend out past it. And anybody that's watching that's not a Tau player, don't let Tau players do that. They must fire first, which also means that their order of operations consume marker lights and all that sort of stuff, and then they move 6 inches back.
Can they be used in the same phase? Can you order advance them 16 and fire and fade them 6 away?
Oh, yes. Yes, you can.
Right.
So one of my favorite things to do, and I'll actually borrow one of your models. So, Chelly, just track this. So let's say we're just representing bottom floor, but he's just there. So I go auto advance 18, and I go, okay, I want to shoot a unit that's all the way back here. I wouldn't have line of sight from there. I go, cool, 18 to here. I basically just go, all right, I'm going to pop him on this feature, which because I'm in the area terrain, I'm no longer getting obscuring, so I can be seen from the entire board. I do my shooting, but before I do, because I don't want to take the negative to firing, I spend 2 CP, one for fire and fade, and one for dynamic offensive. Because even though I didn't take the 16 doesn't override the 18, but I get the ignore the modifier. Because if you've got a greater value, you can take that greater value without any problem. So I shoot at my unit here, and then I go, cool, 6 inches, straight down. I go onto the other side of this, and I've now obscured from any reprisals as long as I'm not worried about him charging me or whatever. And I do this a lot with basically making it so that when I'm getting aggressive later on in the phase, I can get an angle, say, that's off an objective, and then jump back onto it and go, cool, I control that by the end of my phase. The other thing you can do with fire and fade...
Been on the receiving on that more times than I care.
The other thing that you can do, let's say the crisis suit is in combat with Carl here. It's because Americans say Carl weird. So Carl is doing his thing, whatever. Now, because of the battle suit rule, where we're allowed to fire in our shooting phase into combat, and unless they're heavy weapons, we don't take a penalty for doing it, you can designate that you will fire and fade. They fire first, and as long as that model dies, I then go, cool, whoop, and go wherever I want, out of combat.
So you can't, if you don't kill the guy in combat,
you are stuck in combat, unfortunately, because you cannot make a normal move while you're in engagement range of an enemy model. You can also do it in a way that if he has to pull models in a certain direction that would pull him out of engagement range, let's say he's got a unit that's strung out touching an objective, and if he loses that, that's 4 primary, you go, cool, even if I don't kill you, if you pull from where that objective is because you've only got a couple of models, then I'm happy to stay in combat spending a CP for you to lose 4 primary. It's really, really great.
Worthy trade.
Yeah, so a lot of people only use fire and fade defensively, and I will say it's the base sort of use case of the stratagem, but also don't forget that it can be used aggressively. If you need to go 24 inches, auto advance 18, 6 inches forward again, and you take a point that's potentially like, 24 inches of movement is I'm here and then I take that that objective randomly, which is normally not doable by almost anything in the game, except for Alex's AdMech because they go a billion whatevers and do mortal wounds.
I can move my knights, well, I'm just 20 inches, 22 actually.
20 is pretty good, yeah. But unlike Alex's army, they don't also fuck your sister in the process.
Oh shit, stepsister, you stuck?
Well, ask the guys yesterday.
Guys, I really hope you enjoyed that video and it helped you out. With the Arcs of Omen coming out, the best way to get ready for it is with Aussie Wargaming. They do an enormous 25% off all Games Workshop products. Go and check out their arrivals. Go and check out, wow, the Grand Tournament mission pack sold out quick. But we have a ton of other stuff that's coming in. They're getting restocked all the time. With Christmas just gone, the restocks from GW are going to get even faster. So go and check it out. They've got some awesome stuff on here. Excellent prices. Thank you, Aussie Wargaming. And for anybody that's interested in upping their Tau game, upping their 40k game, helping me to build a studio and getting some awesome stuff in return, head over to the Pantheon Studios Patreon. You'll get access to a lot of behind the scenes posts, access to videos early. All of my patrons get this stuff 24 hours early. Pictures of my incredibly ugly mug, pictures from Christmas, behind the scenes, tournaments. I'm about to go to Uprising in Adelaide, Australia, which is Australia's answer to LVO. It is I think there are 200 and plus people now for the tournament. If you want to see all of that stuff, only my patrons are going to get access to that. They also have access to the Pantheon Studios Discord, where there's a ton of channels for list help, showing what you're working on and having a look at other people's stuff. It is incredibly active and full of some really, really awesome people, which as a creator just makes me so happy. So if you're interested, head to Pantheon Studios Australia. I'll leave a link down in the description. On screen now will be all of my patrons, which if you join us, you will have your name on screen as well, including all of the other awesome stuff. We're also going to be doing a 1-hour round table every month for subscribers of any patron tier. And that is going to be where we jump into Discord. I'll be on camera so everybody can, see and I can demonstrate and whatever else. And we're going to go through the meta, how it's shaping up, what it means for Tau, matchups for people to look at, and actually having a channel for people to put in questions, have me answer it. And the best part is that I'm going to record it all as a private YouTube video for my patrons to look at whenever they want. So if you want to get access to all of this stuff and much, much more to come, go and help us out. Support me on Patreon, and I will see you guys in the next video.